Making mistakes is a part of life for both individuals and groups. Remember that. CDPR is a game development company. They make games to make money, right? Right. They have made games in the past with critical acclaim, right? The Richer series. Even though I've never played that game, I've heard very good things. Now, when they released Cyberpunk 2077, it was buggy. It was such a buggy mess that they removed the game from the PlayStation Store. I have never seen that happen. In all my years of gaming, I have never heard of that. Now, even though individuals can make mistakes, companies can make mistakes too. And if a company made a mistake, but now vows to fix it, all I can do is wait and see. And to their credit, they have fixed the game instead of laying blame or trying to escape responsibility. With that, they got my kudos right there. But let's be clear here. It's better to have a product work on release as opposed to fixing it later on. Sometimes, you can just miss the mark. That's normal. You make mistakes. Even our group can make mistakes. And improvements are needed to rectify the issue. Alternatively, could be that, we were all getting scammed, right? They knew that the game wasn't functional before they released it. They hyped it up in marketing because they wanted to sell by a certain date. And they still pushed it out full well knowing they could just fix it later on. And that is something that has been happening in the gaming industry for quite some time now, where games are released in a buggy state, consumers buy it, and then the developers fix the patches later on. In some cases, they may not even fix them. Like, you might still have a buggy mess of a game and the developers just move on because they've made enough money to cover their expenses and, receive a profit. That's my problem here. What exactly happened behind closed doors and what was the decision-making process here? But to their credit, CDPR stayed focused and actually fixed many of the issues with the game and released this fix in a free 2.0 patch. They're still patching the game as we speak because I think they're at 2.1 now. So this is one of those examples where the developers actually stayed and fixed the issues. Even though, I need to say this, the game is still quite buggy, right? So if you decide to buy the game right now, it's still buggy. You're still gonna have some bugs. Like, I've noticed some bugs in the game that the 2.1 patch fixed. But, everyone's experience will be different. Fair enough. All in all, I think it's a good way to handle the situation. It's a good way to deal with a bad launch. Although, it shouldn't have been like that in the get-go, but this is becoming very, very common in gaming. So the problem here for me is the fact that people were misled about this product in the first place. They were convinced into thinking that the game would run in a proper state. They were convinced that the game was ready when it wasn't. And the company knew this, but still pushed it out. That is my problem here. Additionally, they've actually passed 25 million in sales as of the making of this video. And I think it's going to continue to grow, right? So whatever it is that happened, be it a legit error or foul play, it worked out for CDPR. And I'm honestly not sure how to digest this situation. Because on one hand, if it's a legit error, they fixed it and everything's rectified. If it was that they tried to just push out the game and then fix it afterwards with the new DLC, you're going to be seeing more and more of this, where you're going to spend money on a product that doesn't work on launch, has issues, and you're going to have to wait for it to be in a better state in a few months or a year's time. So I'm not sure how to digest this really, because I don't have all the information to make a judgment call, but it feels uncomfortable for me as somebody that's spending money on a product. But either way, let's look at the game. First and foremost, this is a gorgeous game. And I think it will be a tech demo for graphics cards going forward. That's how good this game looks. I mean, just look at it. You don't need me to tell you that this looks good. You've seen it. Another point that I have here is, so this game was created with the Red Engine 4, and they're no longer going to be using this engine going forward. That's kind of sad to me, because this is a good engine. It is kind of buggy, but if they fixed it, this engine has really good promise for the future. Problem is though, they're moving to Unreal Engine 5, which I understand wanting to use Unreal Engine, but at the same time, you have the opportunity to build your own. You already know how to use it, unless what they're trying to do, the paranoia in me is thinking that they're trying to get rid of Red Engine, so that way you don't have to use devs that only know how to use the Red Engine. You could hire developers from outside of the company. Oh yeah, so you can hire developers from outside the company that know how to use Unreal Engine 5. You should have more access to those developers as opposed to bringing in new people and training them to use Red Engine 4. That's what I'm thinking. It would be good if this engine was updated and licensed out like Unreal, but that would take more work in actually like optimizing the engine. However, I could see that being beneficial for them in the future, but I'm not sure how bad Unreal Engine 4 was, because it could be that this engine is just really buggy and they're just going to move away from it because of Cyberpunk, and it would be more reliable and cheaper to go to Unreal Engine 5. That could be the case. Either way, they both look really good as engines, but under the hood, it might be better to use Unreal Engine 5 in all honesty. So in this new DLC, Phantom Liberty, the game actually has multiple endings. When I found out that there were multiple endings added to the new DLC, I got curious and I wanted to see what the endings were. So that way I knew what ending did I want to work towards. Now, I don't want to spoil anything. However, if you have not beaten the game or seen the endings before, then maybe just skip this part out. The new endings seem to be forcibly written in a way to be sad and dark. Now, I get that this is a spy thriller. I get that this is what they wanted to work towards, but it seems like it didn't really work out as well as they thought that it would. And it seems that many people online agree that, you know, they didn't really like the endings, but there is some sense to there not being a happy ending in the fact that this is Cyberpunk and the world is supposed to be sad and dreary, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be that way. No, it seems like they wanted the endings to all be bitter instead of bittersweet, or even sensible, right? The endings make me ask more questions, and these questions are related to why wasn't X or Y done, or why was X or Y done in this way? Now, thanks to the fact that Cyberpunk is set in a technologically advanced world, communication is very simple for them to do, right? So simple communication would have resolved many of the events that took place in the credits, and even bring some level of hope to the story. Even though it's a pretty grim story, I still understand the idea of even in a bad situation, there can be hope. And there was hope for V in the story. That's why, you know, I stuck out so long to see like what could V do to help herself and what could be done in the story to make things work out positively for V, as opposed to working towards nothing. Additionally, it seems like there was no one to really root for in the new cast of characters, besides maybe Riffle, right? The new main cast seemed a bit more sad and manipulative, right? And I understand that they're spies, but dude, Reed seems so depressed as a character. It seems that he's walking with a heavy burden, but then in the choices that he's made, like I can see why you're so depressed. You're making weird choices. That's a part of the narrative to spin him that way. The characters are constantly hiding things and only revealing information when it serves them, which makes sense. They're spies and they're manipulative. But at the same time, V, you can choose to be very straightforward. And most of the choices that I've come up to were very straightforward for V, right? So V is actually being quite honest. And I played a female V. Now, she proves her honesty to the rest of the cast continuously. So it makes sense to trust her more and more because you can see that this is an honest person. Now, all stories don't need to be forcibly happy, right? They don't need to have a forced happy ending. But this is an example of a game with a forced sad or distressing ending. Like all of the endings were, to me, just sad and depressing. Like there's no point in working towards those endings for me, right? There is the positive in the story, and this is a spoiler. V does have the opportunity to cure herself. However, she loses something important. Multiple things, actually. And it comes at the expense of also, one thing is her relationships that you've built up throughout the game with these characters. Now, to me, that feels kind of weird. Like the things that you've built up towards getting and using in the game, at the end of the story, you don't got none of them. So that gives you the opportunity to start over from scratch. You start from nothing. But you have nothing, and one of the things that you lose, you may not be able to gain it back. Like maybe you will, maybe you won't. Now, V does have a new opportunity to start life in Night City. The problem with it is that you're in Night City, where literal goons have access to cyberware. Like, V is going to be at a disadvantage the way the story is written. Additionally, V has a reputation, and criminals might come looking for her to, you know, kill her for glory, or, you know, she's killed a lot of people, so somebody might want revenge and she's not going to be in a position to protect herself. One of the big issues that I had with the ending was maintaining the relationships. Now, at base, even basic communication in the form of a simple text message to V's friends would allow them to know that, you know, she's okay, she's actually getting help, and it may take a while. Now, they have the technology to do this. We've seen in the game where you can have phone calls and text messages sent instantly. Now, in one of the endings, you actually get surgery to fix V. But when one does a surgery, you actually have the opportunity to fill out a form to contact like a next of kin. Now, to me, it would make sense that V would give Reed a next of kin or somebody to contact. Even though V doesn't have family, she could give Reed like a list of people that she would like to contact to let them know that, hey, she's doing surgery right now. No, that's the thing that's strange to me. There was no contact done. So that's assuming to me, well, that leads me to assume that there was no contact list given to Reed, or Reed didn't have access to it. Like he didn't have access to her phone to make contact with anyone. That's so strange to me. And I understand the idea that, you know, they're secret agents and you wouldn't want anybody else to know about this kind of thing. But V has only been a secret agent for like at most a week, a few days, right? So these other people have been living their whole lives as agents. It was thrusted upon her rather quickly. Now, looking back at this, if the people in V's life knew about V's condition and they were told that she was getting surgery, then that would bring hope to the story. It would bring hope to show that this individual was put in an extraordinarily bad situation where there is almost no solution to be found. But she kept trying, she kept working, and throughout the process, she made friends, she helped people, and she found a way to help herself. That is the silver lining that could have been provided in the story, but it wasn't. This could have been written in a way where it shows, wow, she did it. V actually did it. All the work that she put in actually amounted to something, as opposed to like disappearing for 2 years and then everybody assumed that she's dead and moved on with their lives. That is actually way more dismal, because when you actually think about it, right? People in V's life knew that she was suffering at the hands of the relic, right? They understood that she was on borrowed time. Given that knowledge, if she disappeared for a year, right? Obviously gonna assume she's dead. She died somewhere because of the relic. Because you've seen how good she is in fights, so she can handle herself. But more than likely, the thing that would kill her would be the relic. Or the relic rewrote her consciousness and now she's Johnny and running around. If that happened, you would see V come back with a different personality, be a completely different person, but she just disappeared. Now, this is one of those games where I ended up thinking to myself, man, none of these actually seem worth the effort. Like, none of these endings are actually anything I want to work towards. The negatives all overshadow the good outcomes to such a high degree that it's not even worth, no, well, not to say it's not worth it. I don't even want to assess it. I don't want to think about it. It's just too sad. And it's a bit close to home, right? It's close to the idea that whatever it is that you do, the corpos are going to win. You're stuck at a deficit and there's no way to get back from it. And that is the idea or the concept that some of the characters that I'm imagining that they would have, given the fact that V disappeared. And then when some of them, they don't even know that she came back, right? I think it's only a few people that knew that she came back. Granted, she did come back, right? So there is that. She's not dead. But at the same time, she's come back in such a weaker state that she can't help anybody, even herself. There is this thought in my head that they actually tried to emulate the ideology of the Cyberpunk anime, sort of, making it seem like a world where nobody wins but the corpos, and all roads lead to ruin. It seems like they're trying to send a message, but it seems like a message of nihilism and sadness. If you guys actually played the DLC, let me know what you think, because I understand that when it comes to stories, different people will have different interpretations. So let me know what you guys think if you actually played the game, if you saw the endings. Let me know if you liked it. I know that it's a fun game, so more than likely you're enjoying the game. Now, with all that being said, CDPR has said that they're not going to release any new content for Cyberpunk 2077. Apparently, there are rumors that they will be working on possibly a movie or a TV series, maybe another anime. Cyberpunk 2077 will not be having any new content added. They are adding fixes though. But it seems like this is the end of Cyberpunk 2077 for now.